Hey, Ian, thanks for joining us today. As way getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Yeah. So my name is Ian Franklin. I've been in sales really the way I look at it now, the majority of my life. My initial reaction to calling myself a salesperson was less enthusiastic, I would say. And wasn't until somewhere along the line I realized it doesn't matter the situation, you're selling something, right? Whatever we're involved in, we're selling something, whether it's to ourselves or to other folks. But so really, from a young age, got involved in some different jobs that allowed me to sell things in some way to people, and got into the industry that I'm in 2005 by chance. Just folks at my church that had a need for a salesperson, and found I could do it pretty well. Was able to read a room and understand what people needed. And had a lot of success and a lot of fun kind of traveling the country, um, learning a little more about America and the people that make it up, and just the wild differences from state to state and region to
Really?
region. Yeah, yeah, it's remarkable. It's remarkable how peaceful the country is. I know it's a crazy time, but there are crazy differences from state to state. But learning to kind of appreciate those differences and appreciate the folks that make them up, and then just kind of having continued success in B2B sales, working specifically in kind of secure documents, being able to produce those. And then I guess it was 2018, started down the sales management track, and now am director of sales and marketing for a small company in Newtown, Pennsylvania that does printing and mailing of secure documents for all sorts of companies. So,
And what was the impetus to make the leap into sales?
I think opportunity was probably the biggest factor.
Yeah.
I always thought that I'd kind of go into a law track. I thought I'd be a lawyer,
Wow. Really?
and had an opportunity to take a sales job while I was painting houses actually with my dad, and was painting a very nice house. And the guy happened to own a he owned a car dealership, and I got into car sales, and
Wow.
that's what led me down the track of sales. Yeah.
And what about the law attracted you?
I think the right and wrong. I think that you could arrive at a place where there's a lot of gray. You discern something. You land in a place that's less gray. And I think at the same time, the malleability of it, right? So you've got these, opposed viewpoints and these different ideas, but you're able to kind of sometimes thread a needle and get to a place that you might not expect. So I like the adventure part of the law, I think.
Yeah. And what part of sales do you like best? Is it the meeting new people? Is it the closing? Is it the puzzle, the maze?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I think the majority of my life, I'd say the people, right?
Yeah.
That I think to be good at sales, you have to, at some place inside of you, you have to care about people, right? You have to think that they matter. And as I've gotten older, I'm appreciating different aspects of it. And recently, a lot of it has been like there's a lot of work you can do on yourself and who you who you are, who you want to be in the midst of a sales process, right? And so I would say, like, I've been doing a lot of thinking about anxiety recently,
Yeah.
and how that comes out in me, and ways that I can control it, ways that I can flex with it, and ways that I can use it. So I think probably again, kind of the adventure side. There's not there's not an exact blueprint from one sales engagement to another. There's going to be nuance, and I like that part of it.
And what do you think makes you a great salesperson?
Great, great. I don't know. That makes me uncomfortable. The word great. I think I'm pretty good. I think I'm
Okay.
getting, which is good. But I think that I'm getting more and more comfortable and confident in who I am in a given situation, right? And keeping, I guess, keeping tethers to that foundation enables you to pivot when a situation demands it. Um, and so I think I'm pretty good at that. I can read the room. I can usually get a pretty good idea of people's motivations and what's going to help them get over hurdles.
Yeah.
So being able to help people clear those hurdles in as easy a way or quick a way as possible. I think that has aided me probably more than any other skill.
I think that's the critical skill,
Mhm.
because I think a lot of salespeople think it makes logical sense for them to buy my product. They'd be crazy not to buy my product, but they don't care, right?
Yeah.
You got to think like them.
Mhm.
What are they
Yeah.
going through?
You have to be able to see, and actually it's really funny, you had said the word empathy before we started, and I was just talking to a friend of mine about this word, and I find that compassion is a better motivator, that I'm going to recognize the hangups and not like I had a sales mentor for years who would kind of always come back to this word of, oh, well, they're an idiot. And
Oh, it's helpful.
yes, it was terrible. It was terrible. Uh, and I think as salespeople, we all have felt that
Felt
frustration.
that, yeah.
That place where you're like, this doesn't make sense. Like you said, it's logical. They should buy my product. Because we're not selling something bad. We're selling something
Right.
that's help them, right? But we get to that emotional place of got to be an idiot to
It's
buy.
obvious.
But being able to see, here are the things that are in their way, right? And I care about them enough to not disregard them and call them an idiot, right? Even internally, right? I'm going to quickly get past that phase to the place where now I'm trying to get creative about how to help them clear it, sometimes without even knowing they're being helped in clearing it,
Yeah.
right? I'm going to try to remove some of those roadblocks because at the end of the day, I do believe firmly I got what they need. I have something good for them, and it's not just, it's not just self. Obviously I want to get paid.
Of
I
course.
want to win. But this is a little tangential, but it kind of goes back to something my dad impressed on me. And I don't know if he used these exact words, but it was around the time that I bought my first car. He was trying to help me navigate the purchase of my first car. It was a 92 Saab 900. And we met a guy at a gas station. And this is when you could buy a car cash, when used cars were reasonably priced. And I knew about the budget that we had. And we went in and my dad asked the guy, what's the best price you can do? And he said a number that was within our budget. And my eyes lit up. And I said to my dad, we can do that. And my dad said, shh, shh.
Go wait in the car.
Yeah. But he said, and then he turned, this was brilliant. He turned to the guy, he said, hey, I'm trying to teach my son about negotiating here too. And he said, I can't take your first number. And they worked it out. They worked out the deal. But on the way back, my dad told me a deal is only a good deal when it's good for both parties,
Yeah.
right? And recognizing I got to have something of value and it's got to be worth it for me. And that's really great to arrive at that place. Like that's a really good human interaction. And we can foster that all the time, regardless of if it's a sales deal or not.
I'm curious, what's your definition of compassion in the sales context?
Yeah, so I think it really is related to kind of that theme of seeing pain that they're experiencing, right? And it could be pain that they easily leave at the office, or it could be something that keeps them up at night. But recognizing there are serious problems that we can help fix that are going to improve the performance, sometimes the mental health and family life of some of these folks.
Yeah.
Um, and that I want them to have relief from that. And so that often comes up for me, kind of a reminder of that comes up when I'm getting to a negotiating place. And I know, you know what, I might be able to make more on this, but it could risk the deal a little bit. Or I might be able to give a little bit here to aid the speed of this deal. It's worth it. It's worth giving a little bit here. And so I think the compassion comes out there sometimes too. But I think it's rooted in caring about people and the circumstances they face.
And how did you get past that logic part from your first sales mentor? Because I think a lot of reps stick in the logical
Hmm.
and they can't get past it.
I think a help for me was seeing how it seemed to eat him up, you know? Um, and I think another one was probably I had a long running deal. So the sales engagements in my world will last 9 months to 2 years sometimes,
Wow.
right? So there's a
Okay.
lot of ebbs and flows. There's a lot of sticking with it. And there was a particularly complex deal that really was the most challenging of my career, and was probably the biggest breakthrough for me to realize I can do this. I can do this at a high level. And we were told no in the deal. They chose the other vendor. It came down to us and another, and they chose this deal, and it was a very substantial contract. And I felt that instinct of, you got to be kidding me. There's no way, right? This is the dumbest thing. Yeah. And then pressed through and crafted probably one of the most important emails I've ever written, that kind of laid out the case of how this is best for him to reconsider. And he did. He reconsidered it. We got two more meetings and we got the contract. They went back on choosing this other vendor because of the case that I was able to lay out. And if I had any hint in that email of you're an idiot, there's no way we get that other at bat. You know what I mean? And
Well,
I think that it's pragmatic more than anything of I can't stay there. Like there's no chance, maybe I'll feel good for a minute of like othering them, but I'm not going to win there, and they're not going to either.
yeah. And you're selling to banks? Is that the primary market?
That was a bank. We sell to banks, we sell to credit unions, we sell to insurance companies and utilities and mortgage servicing and all kind of anything that's any industry that's regulated, that
Okay.
has some compliance that they're under, and has large amounts of communications, whether it's mail or electronic.
And what's important to them? Is it cost? Is it traceability, the security of what you do? Or
Those are great questions, Brian. So I would say it kind of ebbs and flows a little bit in the
yeah.
industry. So I think cost consciousness was a big piece of it in like the 05 through 2012, and then everybody outsourced to somebody, and then it really was service. And the thing that has kind of risen to the top and been a constant differentiator for us is the people. And that can be cliche, but I think it's more that kind of in line with what we're talking about, even on a customer service level, is that there's compassion there. There's legitimate care for if your business is helped and your job is made easier, then I'm doing my job, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. So I think that's kind of distinguished itself over the years.
And what's the persona on the client side that typically is responsible for looking at the product that you sell?
So typically and that's also going to vary a little bit. It's going to be SVPs, EVPs,
Is that high up?
yeah, anybody related to operations. So CIOs, COOs,
Wow.
thing. So
That
typically
that
they
is
tend
not
to
an
be good.
easy persona.
No, and it's not. I think probably the most difficult piece of that is that it's not a consistent persona.
Yeah.
So from industry to industry, you got different personality types that are in there. For the most part, they're going to be pretty conscientious. For the most part, they're going to be in the back of their mind budget conscious. But you got some pretty wild swings in there too, which makes it more fun.
And I got to imagine they try and push you into the commodity trap very quickly.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And that was not the case early on in my career. It was more, we had a solution they desperately needed. Take my money. you know. And now there are options out there, and really, what you get to demonstrate over time is, hey, we actually get it. We understand what you're doing, and we can help you with the ins and outs of that. And we have done it enough that we aren't reinventing any wheels for you.
Yeah.
So let's go down this track as a partner, not just as a vendor kind of thing.
And how do you get them to see that partnership and the value of that before you actually do it?
I would say more than anything else with stories.
Stories,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so if you can't tell a compelling story, you're gonna have a really hard time with sales, I think. And that to me is an exciting thing that's a little bit of a tether to like early society stuff. Like we learn through stories. We learn even how to emote better through hearing people's stories. And so being able to invite someone into the truth that someone else experienced is like a safe way to dip a toe in foreign waters. You know what I mean? If you've heard, oh, they're like me, and now in that story, I'm putting myself in that story. You're inviting them to, a little proof of concept that's imaginary on the very front end.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of reps, again, stick with the features, functions, the
Mhm.
some unique thing that the company has, which is good,
Oh,
but
it's great if you can get it.
well,
It's,
but
yeah.
it also requires the client to map that to their reality.
Mhm. Yep.
Where a story, you're telling them how it maps to their
Mhm.
reality without telling them it maps to their reality.
Right. Yep. Yep. Well, and you're letting them discover that in a
Yeah.
sense, through the arc of the story and the connections it naturally has to them. Yeah. Yeah. So I'd say that's probably the number one way to say this is not just a commodity you're purchasing. This is a partnership we're both going to invest in over time.
And have you found people who don't appreciate that, who like, it's a thing, here's an RFP, bid on it?
For sure, for sure. And for the
Yeah.
most part, we try to lose early on those ones. Recognizing, hey, this isn't our best use of energy and money and time. So let's avoid the RFP unless we've got a kind of an end around to build relationship in the midst of it. So when because there are structural things, and that's probably one of the biggest difficulties, probably where I stay in that idiot response the most now is the RFP trap. Is that the vast majority of companies that go through it hate the results, and they've tortured themselves with this process because somebody else did it, and it's like it's an internal IBM purchase, right? Nobody got in trouble for doing an exhaustive RFP. It's like you should.
Well,
You
it's
should.
it's a stu. I mean, do you buy a car that way? Do you buy a house that way?
And it usually cuts them off, the decision makers and the team, from the things they're going to actually care about the
Care
most,
about, yeah,
the
right,
things that long term make it a fruitful partnership. So it's tough because when you don't have rapport, it's really hard to tell that to somebody. You
right.
know, this
And
RFP is going to hate you. You know.
yeah, they want to keep you at arm's length, and they're telling you you're a commodity.
Well, and I think that goes. This is a little bit tangential as well, but that I think goes to a societal push that we've had, like where we think that something that's more um, less emotional or less engaged or cleaner is better.
Yes.
And I actually tie that to the what I think is a wrong thing where we've been led to believe you never talk about politics or religion. And so now everybody stinks at talking about politics and religion, right? It's inflamed immediately because it's this instead of like, yeah, you should talk about that like a human to people who you care about, right? And I think it's a similar thing where we're dissociating from the things that we actually care about the most, and it's not to our betterment.
Yeah. And what was your motivation to get into leadership? Was it a natural progression, or was it something you desired, or
I think there was a desire to it. I think that I think probably some of it came from, I don't really like the way that I've been led in different ways in the past. And I think that I would respond to these things a little better. So maybe I could put that into practice. And then I think some of it was just need. We as a company had a need for that role to be filled, and I could do it. So circumstance played a part for sure.
well, let's dig into that. What did you not like that you now fixed as a leader? You
Now
don't
that
have to
I'm
put names or anything.
no, that I'm now endeavoring to fix. I'll say that. I don't know if my team would say everything's fixed, but I think so. There's some standard things about sales, especially when you're a remote salesperson, that my personal experience would say that KPIing people to death doesn't actually help, right? Reporting everything does not actually help. Now, I've had a ton of different experience with different kinds of CRMs and loathe them to different varying degrees. Um, and I think that honestly, part of that is just the view of it on the front end. And I wanted to kind of demystify some of that for my team. And these are tools that can help us, and they're not big brother tools,
Yeah.
right? And so I think shifting my team away from that, like constant microscope kind of focus, um, understanding you're gonna produce, and we'll see the revenue or we won't, right? That's the beauty of sales. You produce or you don't. I'm gonna help as much as I can along the way, but the numbers are gonna come out. And so if I try to get and control every little piece along the way, I'm probably gonna strangle you, you know.
And what I've seen is that it's become the focus, where the focus used to be the conversation between the manager and the rep.
Mhm.
Now the conversations between the manager, the CRM, and the rep, right?
Yeah, no, I can see that for sure. And I think that's probably a bigger strength of mine is that I'm much more interested in the conversation with the rep,
Yes.
and see more fruit in that. And I would say I'm probably so I'm a selling director as well. So like I have a book of business, right? And I think that helps
Yes.
me be a little bit more in tune with some of the challenges, and be able to give real-time advice of, hey, this is working, right? I just got success with this piece. Um, but I stink at that side too sometimes, of getting all the numbers in the right way and all of that. So I've got some, like you were talking about empathy, I've got some empathy on that side of things.
That's it. And anyone can enter stuff into a CRM. Doesn't make it true, accurate.
That's right. That's right. Hmm.
And we're all smart enough to know what our manager wants to see.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's
But
always some game in the system. Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
but if the manager helps and you want their help,
Hmm.
that's the dialogue you want.
Yeah. And there can be some real value there,
Hopefully.
not just, yeah, not just a filled up column in a spreadsheet.
Well, was there any epiphanies that you had that first year as a manager that you were like, well, this is a lot different than I anticipated?
Yeah, I think that I had the idea, and I think probably a good amount of successful salespeople have this idea that if people would just do it the way I do it, they'll be successful
That's
like
the
me.
big mistake. Yeah.
I had to be disabused of that notion through, you know, like I really thought, man, if I travel with each of my guys and they see the way that I manage a meeting and run an agenda and, you know, bob and weave in the midst of it, they're just going to do that, right?
Yeah.
And the reality is they are their own person, and that person is going to interact in that situation differently than I would. And thank God, right? We don't want a bunch of robot salespeople out there. Now, are there tips and tricks that I've learned over the years that should be helpful? Absolutely. Are there some things that you say, don't do that, don't ever say that again? For sure, right? But giving, I think that's probably the biggest lesson in my first year of it was give space for the personality that you have on the team. And if that personality is going to sell, it's not going to be because that personality starts looking more like my personality.
And did your motivation adapt to the leadership? Because, and it's a little bit different because you're player coach, where you got deals and stuff. And reps tend to get very emotionally attached to them being the player that wins the game and that gets the trophy. And now the manager's kind of doesn't
Yeah,
get the trophy.
I think for me, that was a real easy hurdle to clear, because of my uh, commitment to this particular company. So it's a family-owned company that I was with. I started with them in 2005, left for a time, was with a couple different companies, and came back to really with the motivation of I want to see them take the next step in their evolution. It's second generation of ownership. The new owner is about my age, and I just feel a lot of camaraderie with the group here, but also the success, feel a lot of ownership over the success of the company. And so for me, I was like, I don't care who wins, we got to win, you know. That was, I think that helped a lot. There's not this, no, it's got to be my show kind of thing.
And what do you see as the key differentiator between the best reps and the okay reps?
Um, that's a really good question, especially at review time. We're doing a lot of reviews here right
Are you?
now. And I would say kind of head on a swivel, ready for the next thing. I know I've fallen into the trap of, I got the deal,
Yeah.
right? And that pipeline doesn't
Doesn't happen
tolerate.
by natural. Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't tolerate that. So we have to have our eye on the next thing. And so I think that's probably the biggest thing that stands out amongst the best sales reps are they're always ready for what's next, and planning on it in the midst of the success that's about to come to fruition. Right? They're not taking their eye off of any step in the pipeline. So
More
that it's
consistency over time instead of the quarterly roller coaster.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And in our world, it's really like even an annual roller coaster,
Is it?
because of the length of some of these deals. So I guess the short answer is always be closing, right? So you're always
Must be selling.
filling.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And what do you see, or when you're interviewing, what's a red flag to you? Because something that you just, this isn't going to work out.
Yeah. That is a really good question because we've had different experiences where you hear some. So for me, an interview is an obvious time for a salesperson to shine, right? Like if you're in sales, you probably like for me, I love interviewing. Like it's fun. I get to kind of be on and show off a little bit, right? And so I think we've had some interviews actually in the last couple of years where people didn't sell themselves. And they were a little too humble, right? And but probably the biggest thing that I've seen more and more in person, because we still push for in-person meetings and interviews, is eye contact, not making eye contact.
Really? Yeah.
And in sales, it has been a bit of a concerning trend for me to see how many folks are used to being in front of a camera and they're great on Zoom, but in person they're not there yet. So um, that'd be a big red flag for me, which I think is probably pretty obvious.
Yeah, because I'm sensing there's a lot of reactivity today versus proactivity. And
Mhm.
sales is, I think, 100% proactive.
Yeah, yeah. There's a big hesitancy to be the one that acts first or
Yeah,
be the person that steps out, because then it's your responsibility what happens next,
it
and
is.
nobody loves that feeling. It seems more and more as time goes on.
Cool. Hey, Ian, thanks for joining us today. And where would people go to connect with you?
Yeah, so my company's website is printmailsolutions.com. And I'm on LinkedIn. Love to connect with anybody who would have either interest in a conversation about sales or personal growth, or would like any services around printing and mailing critical documents. So appreciate the opportunity, Brian. It was a lot of fun.